Oh my god, this is so scary. Ah! There's squirrels in my pants. Hello, how are we doing? I am really thrilled to be here. Today we are talking about the art of meaningful conversations and how to have deeper connections. I, for one, am deathly allergic to small talk. Like, if someone mentions the weather, I go into anaphylactic shock. Don't get it twisted. I'm a great conversationalist. I can talk to a wall. That's essentially what I'm doing here. And I previously worked in sales and marketing and met a lot of people at fintech events. And that's where I was often the youngest and often one of the few women in the room as well. And that's really helped to build my EQ. So a little pro tip from me, if you want to build your social skills, go to networking events where you know nobody. It's like a force majeure where you have to go out and meet people because you don't want to be that awkward little wallflower. Today we're going to be talking about some of the ways you can have better conversations with people without relying on conversational card games. Although we will be talking about conversational card games because I fucking froth those things. I've got the We're Not Really Strangers card game. I should be earning commission from We're Not Really Strangers at this point. As for some of the reasons why you should really look to develop your conversational skills and strive to have deeper connections with people, there was this seminal Harvard study which investigated what makes a happy life. So they interviewed a bunch of people from varying backgrounds, and regardless of their socioeconomic status, they found that having deep and meaningful relationships was the key ingredient in having a happy and fulfilled life. And so how can you deepen your connections? You can deepen your connections through conversation as well as through having shared experiences or doing activities together. And that's why whenever you go in the first few dates, you generally do an activity together like bowling because it helps break the ice. You have a shared experience from which you can relate to each other, right? And I'm a massive fan of talking to strangers in this house, despite what my mother told me, okay? And if you think about it, it's like so many people that I love in my life, aside from my family, they were strangers once. And some of the people that have changed my life in such paramount ways, they were once strangers. Obviously, use your intuition. Don't be talking to just anybody that approaches you on the street. But overall, I am a massive fan of talking to strangers. I've had so many beautiful chance meetings and occurrences with strangers who have just happened to like illuminate my worldview in some way. And I'll give you two examples. First example, I was in Paris by myself. I just finished a very transformational 4-week hike across France and Spain called the Camino de Santiago, which I'm going to talk about in a separate episode because it changed my life. And so I was traveling solo for a little bit afterwards and I found myself in Paris and it was like my second last day and I spontaneously decided to go for a run just in time to watch the sunset at the Eiffel Tower. So I run like 7 kilometers across Paris. I'm like running across the Seine. It was stinking hot, mind you. It was like summer. I finally get to the Eiffel Tower and I'm just like sticking out like a sore thumb, dude. Like everyone is dressed to the nines, like dressed lavishly and like elegantly, and I'm just out here looking like a little rat that's just crawled out from the set, just sweaty and disgusting, and I'm in like this active wear. Anyways, I'm at the Eiffel Tower and I noticed this guy and immediately I was just kind of drawn to him in some way. And then we were kind of walking in a similar direction. So we walked around the garden, which like had this beautiful view of the Eiffel Tower, right? And then I strike up conversation with him and I was like, do you want me to take a photo of you? And he was like, yes, please. And anyways, I take a photo of him. And as I'm taking a photo, I realized in the top left corner where it says your most recent app, his most recent app was OneSec. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with OneSec, it's an app that's designed to prevent like habitual scrolling through social media. So you set up an automation in your phone that whenever you open a social media app like Instagram, for example, it automatically opens OneSec where you have to take a deep breath before you can access social media. And it's quite a niche app. Not really a lot of people know about it, but like I've gotten all my friends onto it. I'm a staunch advocate of OneSec. So when I saw this app in the top left corner of his phone, I was like, oh my God! You use 1 sec too? And he's like, yeah, dude. And conversation with him just flowed so naturally. He was such an inspiring and uplifting person. Like, he was an ultra marathon runner. He had his own business. He was big into volunteering and doing like little workaway trips. We ended up kind of on like an impromptu date where we like walked around the Eiffel Tower and then we waited for it to like sparkle up at night. And it was just crazy. Like, we had so many similar values, wanted similar things out of life, and it was just such an invigorating conversation. And another moment that we had, which was just fascinating or eerie, was he asked me what my favorite movie was, and I was like, The Untouchables, which is a French film. And he was like, no fucking way, that is one of my favorite movies too. He gets out his phone, turns out he has like the soundtrack full downloaded to his phone. And it was just like, what are the chances that I spontaneously decide to run to the Eiffel Tower to catch the sunset, and I happen to meet this beautiful person who had similar values to me. And then we hung out the next day. It was my last day in Paris, and we went to Le Marais. We went to Le Marais and we like checked out all the art galleries. It was a really beautiful day and a beautiful experience. And for those of you who are now invested in this story, the story pretty much ends there. Long story short, we were like going back and forth on social media, and I was kind of like, oh, I don't think this person is worth pursuing, and I wish him the very best. But it was still like a really cool experience regardless. And I think it goes to show that when you open your mind and your heart to other people, you can have similar experiences like this too. The second anecdote I want to share is another story that isn't romantic. And again, it was a kind of a spontaneous spur of the moment decision where I went to Rufus du Sol, and then I left my car in Port Melbourne. So then I was like coming to pick up my car in Port Melbourne, and the sun was setting, and I was like, I need to go and watch that fucking sunset because it was beautiful, right? So I pull up to Port Melbourne, I walk out on the pier, and I'm just like sitting on the pier and really contemplating life. Especially at this point in time, I was kind of going through it. I had a lot of major life changes happening in my life, and I was feeling quite fragile, to be honest, right? And so I'm just sitting there, and I noticed this gentleman ends up approaching me. We end up having a D&M on this pier for like, I want to say at least an hour and a half. We just like bonded over like similar experiences, similar values. Like, he was really into personal development, really into like reading and eating beef liver, which is like niche, but I kind of opened up to him a little bit. He kind of gave me some verbal assurances, and it just made me think that like sometimes I wonder that you meet God through strangers. Like, you have a conversation with like a taxi driver or an Uber driver, or you meet someone, and it's almost like the universe is sending you a message of what exactly you need to hear in that exact moment. I really love when like a stranger's path intersects with yours only to diverge again. I think it's one of the most bittersweet things about life. What makes life so serendipitous? So, advice on how to actually have deeper conversations, especially with strangers. My first and most important piece of advice is the understanding that there is always something you can learn from other people. Your ego likes to tell you that you know everything about the world and your place in it, especially relative to other people, but that's an illusion. This is a very strong value of mine, and I think it can be broken down into 2 key things, right? Firstly, curiosity. When you're curious, your mind is open. You're exploring, you're playing, you're experimenting. You have no expectation of the outcome. And you don't assume that you know everything about something or someone. And so I think this helps to kind of drop your expectations as well as your judgments, which leads into my second point, that when you're kind of approaching strangers and trying to have deeper conversations with people, I think it's quite important to like check your ego. Our mind operates off snap judgments. It reduces cognitive load. It helps us make sense of the world. But when you reduce the plural, oh my God, can I pronounce this? Okay, we're going to have to do a different word. When you reduce the multiplicity of a person into a series of labels, like dumb blonde, like that does a disservice to both you and them. And that leads into the next point I want to mention. Nobody is ever above or beneath you. It's really funny to me, right? Like, humans struggled with the inherent meaninglessness of our lives and our existence. So we created structural systems of hierarchy to kind of provide meaning and sense importance to the world. We created empires, religions, social case. People often measure or judge other people based off how deep their pockets are. Some people honestly think a billionaire's life is more valuable than a homeless person's, when in reality, we are all monkeys on a floating rock. We all face the same end. Instead of letting that knowledge scare you, it should empower you. It means that we all have more in common than we think. And this understanding particularly helped me when I was meeting fintech, C-suite, bigwigs, and I thought that they were better than me. It really helps humanize people. And it also just made me realize that at the end of the day, that they're just further along on their journey than me. Next piece of advice, Dale Carnegie-esque advice of if you want to appear interesting, be interested, is generic for a reason. It's tried and true. People love talking about themselves. So be a curious motherfucker and ask people questions about themselves. Here's some of my favorites. What is something you wish more people knew about you? I love this question as it exemplifies the fact that people are far more multifaceted than you may think. And I feel like it gives people an opportunity to share something that they don't typically portray or show to the world. Another question that I love asking is, what are you obsessed with right now? Like, what is something that's really inspiring you or occupying your brain right now? Once you get people to talk about their obsessions, it's like the conversation just flows so much easier from that point on. Other questions that I like to ask people are, what is a book or film you've seen or read more than once? What's your favorite place in the world and why? What's the most spontaneous thing you've ever done? What would you do if money was no object? Do you have a dream that you would like to fulfill one day? When's the last time you felt challenged or uncomfortable? My next piece of advice when it comes to interdependence and social connection is to go first. In order to deepen your connections with people, it requires a level of vulnerability. And I think when the timing's right, kind of establish some sort of rapport with the person, I believe that you should go first and just reveal something about yourself. Now, a lot of people might interpret this as a green light to trauma dump, which I'm absolutely not suggesting. Okay. What is occupying your own brain? And maybe like a problem that you're facing. It could be something like, I'm really struggling with monitoring and navigating my children's screen time. It could be something like, I'm thinking about a career change. I guess reveals a little bit more about your character and like what your intentions are. Another big thing when it comes to building connections with people, I think it's much easier to connect with people when you make your intentions kind of known up front. When people know what your general intention is and people know what, like how you operate and what you're motivated by, a lot of people find it easier to relate and understand you and therefore potentially help you. So go first. Share some of your dreams, share some of your aspirations, something that you're working towards, maybe problems that you're working on. And you never know where that conversation could lead. Like that person could then, I can introduce you to another person that can help you in whatever you're doing. And that's also another key piece of advice, right? When I was working in sales and marketing, I always kind of approached conversations with the mindset of, how can I help this person? You know, it can be something as simple as like, you should meet this person and just introducing them. If it helps them, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I think the fact that you just make the effort to like help people and connect people, it's a really worthwhile skill to have. I honestly am a staunch advocate of going first, whether that's even something as simple as like smiling at strangers on the street, or like if I see a stranger walking down the street with a really cool outfit, like I will generally tell them that they have a really cool outfit. Just go first. Another piece of advice for having deeper conversations, I, for one, really love conversational card games. Conversational card games that I love. Dude, I've had the We're Not Really Strangers conversational card game for years now. And I should be earning commission at this point. I have gotten all of my friends onto that card game. I have played it with my friends, with my family, Back when I was dating, I'd bring it as a little surprise to the date because I, for one, am a nosy motherfucker. I want to know what your dreams are, what your fears are, what you think about before you go to sleep at night. Like, I got to know it all. I want your mum's maiden name. What was the name of your first pet? Your social security. I fucking love this game. Given it as a gift to people. And I honestly think it's just such a brilliant game because it helps us find commonalities in one another, finding yourself in the other, and like recognition of self in the other really helps provide a kind of safe environment for people to kind of open up and be honest and also share things about what they admire in the other person. And it's just really beautiful. I really love it. That just about wraps it up from me. So in order to have deeper conversations and connections with people, it's all about the mindset. Be curious. There is always something you can learn from someone else. Try and find what that thing is that you can learn from that other person. Check your ego at the door. I know our mind operates off snap judgments, but particularly when you're trying to build deeper connections with people, you can't operate off snap judgments. Have your mind and heart be open and curious whilst you have a conversation with that person. If you want to be interesting, be interested. And that's the other thing. Always approach a conversation with how can I help this person, and have no expectation of the outcome, have no expectation of what will I receive in return from this person. And the last thing as well, use conversational card games if you have to. I bring them everywhere. I've literally brought them to work lunches, to dates, to family gatherings. I fucking love them. I need to create my own TBH. That's all from me. I hope you have a blessed week and I'll see you next time. Bye.